It turns out that in golf, there is a difference between the target and the destination. Hi, my name is Natalie. I am the Nourished Leader. This is leadership through life experiences. So I've recently started playing golf, very one on one. I'm on the putting green. I'm not making any extra effort it's just something that has emerged in my life, and I am taking it really slow. And one of the first lessons I have learned in golf is the difference between a target and a destination. So automatically, you would imagine my surprise when I find out that the hole that we're supposed to be hitting into is not necessarily the target. And it was mind blowing because obviously, when I get up to hit the ball, I want to get it into the hole. I'm aiming for the hole. And at first, I was having a lot of fun until I realized that in golf, that's not necessarily the target. And so, this whole idea of hitting towards a target that will put you closer to your destination blew my mind. It literally blew my mind. Now, I know this, it felt like, well, this is goal setting 101. You hit targets and then eventually you hit your goal. But no, because the experience of actually trying to hit a ball to this hole when really that's not necessarily the target. That's the destination. Ultimately, the ball, after so many strokes, will end up at the hole. But what I like about what I'm learning is that in the moment, I feel like golf or whatever it is you're doing that's not related to necessarily work or whatever reflects back to you how you are actually engaging with life in the moment, right? So when you think about, for me, the way my golf lessons have really, um, they didn't just enlighten me, but really allow me to see what is it that I'm struggling with in that moment. That's why I always say experience is the teacher. And the realization that there's a target and a destination just blew my mind. And I ask myself, and I ask you, like, when we're hitting whatever it is we're doing, are we focusing on the target or the destination? And somatically, instinctively, I'm like, no, I'm focusing on the destination. That's my outcome. That's what I want. That's so the target versus the destination shifted my mind because it's like, it feels like they're so far apart. It's not linear. It's not even, you're literally aiming somewhere else so that it gets to the final place. So imagine my surprise this morning when I was digging through some boxes and I found my first ever coaching book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And I loved this book. I read it probably about once a year, and it talks about the mental side of peak performance. Now, I don't play tennis, but it was a really good book mentally. However, when I opened the book, I realized I found a card from 2013. In 2013, I had finished my Peace Corps experience in Ukraine. I remember looking at this card how proud I was of myself because those 2.5, 3 years were really some of the hardest years of my life. It was one of those times where um, it was one of those times where where I saw, somebody had asked me, Natalie, if would you do it again? And I'm like, absolutely not. But I'm so glad I did it. Right? I'm so glad I did it. And what I wrote on the back of this card when I sent it out to friends and family in 2000, at the end of 2013, because I took some time after finishing Peace Corps to travel. I went to St. Petersburg, Russia. I went to Moscow, Russia. Um, I went to Lithuania. I went to Germany. All of these countries for the very first time, and I went by myself. And it was just an incredible way to end such an incredible experience, life-changing experience, an experience that I felt was probably the hardest thing up until that point that I'd ever gone through in my life, but the most fulfilling thing I'd ever gone through in my life. And that honestly was my destination, right? Like I wanted that experience. It didn't go in the way I had precisely saw it, but it did it fulfilled everything I thought it would do at the time and more. So interestingly enough, I wrote this on the back of the card. I said, I conclude this year in celebration and humble gratitude. It's been a year to remember. God has all things, in all things has been faithful, and his blessings have been abundant. The part that's important here. I've always held the saying, success is in the journey, not the destination. To be quite accurate, however, this year has revealed to me that one's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. I don't think it's any coincidence that I would pick up this card or find this card today. Again, I have not seen it in over 10 years, but I think the truth still remains that one's success is really all about one's destination is never a place, but a new way of seeing things. And so as I continue on this journey with now golf, I realize that I'm reminded actually that the new way of seeing things is truly the transformation. That being said, I am hosting a women's clinic on financial strategy on May 4th at Highland Creek Golf Club. I'm partnering with the James Black Foundation. The James Black Foundation was founded by my friend Ed Lawson, who is on a mission to essentially spread financial literacy through youth and through golf, for youth through golf. And I have been, it's an honor to partner with him on this golf tournament. And I am inviting women to join me in a new way of seeing things. Obviously, this is the Nourish Leader. We're going to do everything in a nourishing way. And there's nothing more nourishing than being on a golf course, eating good food, and obviously good conversation. But the purpose, the reason why we're there is to support and to deepen our own financial literacy, to what is a new way of seeing our finances that will ultimately help us get out of our own way. And I say challenge our own status quo on our own relationship with finances. And I am super excited to host this women's clinic. It's going to be game-changing, life-changing, of course. What isn't? But either way, yeah. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Leadership Through Lived Experiences. And I hope you will join me on May 4th at the golf course and talk about all things money. Bye for now.